I lead globe-trotting around the world. I see as many of you here who were with me in China, where I went on to from Kenya to discuss internet policy, which was helpfully tweeted as UK Minister discusses censorship with Chinese colleagues. It wasn't quite like that. Really frank exchange of views about the future of the internet, and I'll come on to the open internet and other issues in a minute, but I would echo what Adam Michael said, which is that I thought the IGF conference was incredibly valuable meeting. I think it was the best attended there's ever been, and it was useful for people to make it quite clear their views in favour of multi-stakeholder governance of the internet as the future. It's a very fast-moving and fascinating area. I can also reveal that Adam Michael was extraordinarily impressive at the conference, at least at the time that I was there, in terms of two particular key and very helpful contributions. It's always annoying to be overshadowed by your elder and better predecessor, but nevertheless it still was important for the future of internet policy that was the case. So anyway, it's very nice to be here. I thought I'd kick off by talking about the communications review that we're undertaking. The Communications Act has served a very useful purpose, but everyone knows the cliche that it was the bill and the act that didn't mention the internet, and it's now 8 years old, which in internet years is an absolute lifetime. So for that reason and for many other reasons, we felt it's important that we conduct a review of the communication sector and legislation so that we can continue to be innovative and at the forefront of the global digital economy. We are planning to publish a green paper next year, in the new year. I'm tempted to use this new word I've learned since being a minister, which is to say we will be publishing it in the spring, which translated in Whitehall, spring runs from February to November. We are planning to publish it early next year. There are going to be three key themes. The first is going to be growth, innovation, and deregulation. We obviously want to remove barriers to growth where possible. And I've made clear, I think, both in opposition and now in government, that we do view it as important to clear away regulations, or analog regulations, perhaps you want to put it that way, which are holding back growth, particularly in a converged world. The second is obviously to provide the communications infrastructure that is going to provide the foundation for that growth, and that's broadband rollout. Spectrum management are obviously the key fundamentals to that. And then the third is to create the right environment for our content industries to thrive. In September we announced some of the ideas that we wanted to explore in the coming months and years as part of this review, and in addition to several measures to promote sustained growth to the UK economy, we're keen to maintain the key principles of plurality and freedom of expression in a digital age. And we're determined as well to get the balance right between protecting and empowering citizens and consumers when it comes to illegal and also potentially offensive or inappropriate content for children. So we've got an opportunity now to get the environment right for the communications industry for the next 10 to 15 years, and I very much hope that the people in this room, many of whom I now know pretty well, will contribute substantially to that. So communications legislation is changing because we're changing and because the internet has fundamentally altered the way we behave, the way we think, the way we do business. Social norms have changed. We date online, we talk online. People live their lives online. People refer now to their smartphones as their digital identity. We all know, of course, that the internet is changing our purchasing habits, and we've all read the Boston Consulting Group report showing that we're now the largest per capita e-commerce market in the world. It also means that more of us are living in a world in which the details of our lives will be shared in an instance, in which networks are always on and the internet knows where you are. So this asks new and challenging questions to consumers, business, legislators, as well as offering unparalleled opportunities for the transfer and storage of massive quantities of data. Data that can be used to improve the world in which we live and the services we use, but also can potentially cause harm. So there are, in a world like this, clashes between the interests of the individual, the public as a whole, business, and the media. Sometimes the argument is about how to protect the privacy of individuals online. Other times it's an argument about how to protect creative content online. And it's a debate that's played out in an arena in which the expectation is that goods and services are free, instant, and universal. And a debate sharpened by our desire to benefit from the very services that could effectively compromise our privacy. So what I want to do now is set out in broad brush terms our approach to internet policy, the areas that we think are important, and what we're going to do over the next few years. First of all, on broadband infrastructure, I think we're still on target to meet our ambitious targets to have the best broadband in Europe by the end of this Parliament. The delivery is gaining pace through Broadband Delivery UK, with the pilots that we've announced all in the procurement phase, and the Wave 2 projects that we announced being supplemented by 2 more areas now in Rutland and Suffolk. We're working closely with all local authorities to progress the local broadband plans following the announcement of indicative funding for each local authority, and we're putting in place a framework contract to assist local authorities to deliver superfast broadband. On the other side, apart from the subsidy that we're putting in effectively, we're also wanting to reduce the actual costs of laying broadband. So we were particularly delighted last week by the BT announcement in terms of passive infrastructure access pricing. We hope, subject to what some of the community broadband people in the room say, that this will help deployment in rural areas. We're still on course to issue guidance on micro-trenching and street works, which we hope will dispel some of the myths and lead to a more consistent approach. And we're also issuing a second consultation document very shortly on the deployment of new overhead lines to carry telecommunication wires. And of course we had the announcement last week from the Chancellor about mobile coverage, an additional £150 million is going to be put in to create a comprehensive mobile network. And I think it's important to explain that we see that as not just voice, but also for data, so that as and when we finally get this interminable auction process over, we will be able to provide, as it were, a competitive opportunity for superfast broadband via mobile as well as via fixed line. The other issue is about, as it were, the philosophical approach to the internet as it develops. I've already made some earlier remarks about some internet governance. As you know, last year I made the idiotic decision to make a speech about net neutrality. It certainly increased my profile, but it laid itself open to interpretation from every conspiracy theorist around the globe. What I want to make clear is that I'm committed to an open internet, and I think it's important to make clear what I mean by that, which is that I think we have a very competitive broadband environment in the UK that while we don't have the same problems that other countries do of a monopoly or oligopoly of broadband provision, we want to see how broadband develops, and we want, above all, to allow the market to allow that to develop. And so we don't want unnecessary or hasty government interference at this stage. So that's why I don't believe it's necessary to legislate in this area. I do believe the government can play a role in providing guidance. And I say again, our overriding aim should be to protect the essential openness of the net, which means expecting all ISPs to provide internet access service to all legal content, and it means no blocking and no discriminatory degradation of services or applications for commercial reasons. But as I say, we need to be careful not to place unnecessary restrictions on a market that hitherto has done very well without interference, and we want to encourage innovation and experimentation across the board to ensure continued investment in infrastructure. The Broadband Stakeholder Group are also nearing the end of the pilot phase of a transparency code of practice that every major ISP and mobile network operator has signed up to, and in addition to this, and at my instruction, they're working on a second agreement, this time focusing on non-discrimination and traffic management will be industry-wide. So self-regulation should clearly be our first option here, and I'm confident that when combined with the new backstop powers Ofcom have on transparency and minimum quality of service, we'll be able to ensure the internet will continue to be open, innovative and competitive driver of growth and innovation it is today. I've also been responsible for implementing the e-privacy directive, and I think that we have done a pretty good job, and I'm not saying that so that I can take the credit. We had some superb officials working on the e-privacy directive, and I think they did a really spectacular job in terms of taking account of the interests and concerns of business, which, funnily enough, in the realms of e-privacy actually do often coincide with the interests of the consumer, even if the consumer may not necessarily realise it. The two key issues that need to be addressed concerning an individual's personal data are, first of all, what happens to the data when we upload it from bank details we submit or the family video that we upload on a social networking site. And the other relates to what others know about us, where we've been on the web, that fear of the online big brother, the debate which in the US has become known as do not track. So it's been a challenging piece of work, but I think we've approached it in a sensible and pragmatic way. We've made it clear that the consent of the user is not needed where a cookie is essential for a service that has been asked for by the user, because in effect by asking for the service you're signifying your consent. And to reflect feedback from engagement with the industry, the Information Commissioner's Office will be publishing revised guidance on effective implementation soon. We've also supported cross-industry work on the use of third-party cookies in behavioural advertising, and that is a good example where industry-led solutions can provide an answer, an approach which marries the provision of more information for consumers on the use of cookies with a self-regulatory compliance and enforcement mechanism. We're also working with publishers to ensure they provide increased and easy to access information, and lastly we're working with browser manufacturers to see if browsers can be enhanced to provide relevant information about cookies and privacy as well as easy to use setting. There's no one-size-fits-all solution which is going to cover every eventuality, and there will be legitimate uses of cookies that are not picked up. So we need to have a flexible approach. It's vital, for example, that we don't stymie new business models and innovations that no one has yet thought of. But at the same time, where there are clear breaches of privacy, it's also vital that the Information Commissioner's Office has the tools to do the job. And that's why it's good, I think, the ICO has new powers to fine companies for privacy breaches for the first time, and the power to conduct audits where it's appropriate, and to identify operators, for example, who withhold their number or hide their email ID when they're cold calling or sending out spam emails. Excuse me. Obviously, in the news this week has also been progress on the issue of inappropriate content. And my position on this is very straightforward. Children need to feel like they're safe online, and also parents need to feel that they have the tools at their disposal to provide their children with the safest possible experience online. I've said again and again to the industry that I do not want to regulate, that regulation is a blunt instrument, that I rely on industry to come forward with solutions that work for them and that are technically effective, but they have to understand the political agenda, which is the consumer's agenda, which is the citizen's agenda, which is to provide the tools to provide a safe internet experience. And that's why I'm pleased that we have the announcement this week that the 4 major fixed line ISPs have developed a code of practice to take this forward. I know that Claire Perry has some concerns about how far that has gone, and I have no doubt at all that this is not the end of the debate, that we will continue to debate the most appropriate way forward and to refine what we're doing. The very nature of the internet, of course, requires us to work collaboratively with our international partners. If we want an open internet that drives growth, in which we all behave responsibly, we need to work with our partners abroad. And the issue of privacy, as well as harmful and inappropriate content, does, I think, potentially require international joint efforts. It means dealing realistically and proportionately with the real concerns that people have around their privacy online or their child's access to content. And it's important, I think, to stress that point, because the European Commission, as you all know, is looking at revising the Data Protection Directive. We'll have to look at their proposals in detail, but that is obviously going to be a very live issue. In principle, we do support the idea that consumers should have the right to withdraw their consent for data processing, and we do support greater transparency. But we also do need to be clear about the practicalities of any regulation. For example, how on earth could you enforce the right to be forgotten when data can be copied and transferred across the globe in an instant? We agree that data should be processed in accordance with expectations of privacy in Europe, but also we need to be aware that questions of liability could jeopardise the ability of European firms to use the cloud for data processing and storage. So we should try and question the logic of trying to make firms outside the EU subject to EU law. When it comes to discussing these revisions, or later even putting them into practice, we need again to think carefully about how to ensure they don't stifle innovation, and we need to ensure that the international transfer of data can continue. Finally, a few words about copyright, which is still a very live issue, and I've had some very interesting roundtables to discuss the way forward. The fact is that we live in a country which is world-beating in terms of content creation, whether it's music, film, video games, or television, where we lead the world. So it's important to get the balance right between protecting content and allowing innovation. The Intellectual Property Office's copyright consultation is going to set out proposals for implementing the copyright elements of the government's response to the Hargreaves Review, and represents a genuine attempt to engage industry, consumers, public sector bodies and others in how we can ensure that the UK copyright regime supports growth across the UK economy. And I should also mention, of course, the implementation of the much-loved Digital Economy Act. We announced in August our plans to make a fresh start, what we call rebooting the Digital Economy Act, implementing the initial obligations. We're already on the path to notify the updated cost-sharing mechanism to Brussels, and we're expecting to see Ofcom's initial obligations code published soon. In my view, the initial obligations of the Digital Economy Act remain an important element in tackling widespread copyright infringement. But again, as I've always said, the Digital Economy Act is only part of the solution. We need business and content creators to continue to innovate, to continue to provide services that consumers want and will use and are willing to pay for. But I don't shy away from the fact as well that we also need to tackle egregious sites directly. Consumers accessing content through these sites may not even be aware that they're unlawful, and in some cases unlawful sites look every bit as attractive and professional as legitimate alternatives. So, for example, we've engaged in discussions with credit card companies about removing their payment facilities from offending sites, and we're going to engage with advertisers as well to look at how we can prevent such sites receiving revenue through advertisements. And of course, we're keen to work with search engines and ISPs to see what we can do to make unlawful sites more difficult to find. Of course, we had the Newsbin 2 judgment in the summer, so a copyright owner has already successfully sued for access to infringing websites to be blocked, and I think it's either this week or next week, I think it's this week that we're going to see the details of what the injunction is going to look like. It's no secret that I've held meetings with industry to talk about how we can implement a fast-track process to get an injunction. But again, what I want to make absolutely clear is that that would be a legal process. It would simply be a way that industry, ISPs and content owners can work together to establish what kind of facts need to be established. James Scott smirking. So, in conclusion, I fully recognise the difficulties and the complexities that we face, and that's why events like this are such a welcome forum for sharing ideas. We're conducting, as I say, extensive consultation on our communications review. We're planning to publish our green paper in the new year. We're laying the grounds for broadband infrastructure, both fixed line and mobile. I'm working with Alan Michael and others on maintaining the multi-stakeholder model for internet governance, and I think we made real progress in Kenya and will continue to make progress to make sure that that model is seen to be effective. I continue to support an open internet, but I'm not going to regulate where regulation is not necessary. I think we've implemented the Privacy Directive in a way that doesn't overburden business, but does protect the consumer. And I continue to make no apology for the fact that I want to support our creative industries and content creators who provide so many jobs in this country from online piracy in an effective way as possible. So I hope you enjoyed that interesting overview of internet policy. There's a lot more we can talk about, like cyber security, I'm sure, but I'm very happy to take some questions.